I was proud of what I'd built. From the days of ramen dinners and late-night coding sessions in a cramped studio apartment, to signing multi-million-dollar contracts in boardrooms where suits twice my age finally called me Mr. Blackwood instead of Kid. Stratison Technologies wasn't a gift. It wasn't a hand-me-down from some family legacy or a lucky break from an uncle's favor. It was earned, every hour, every night spent debugging lines of code that blurred together. Every pitch deck polished to a shine, only to be laughed out of the room, until it wasn't. So when my younger sister Caroline got engaged to Brandon Walsh, heir to Walsh Global Development, I figured this was my moment. Not the spotlight necessarily, but at least a seat at the table. A small, subtle nod that my family saw me as more than the spare son. The one who taught himself to code because nobody else would, especially considering that just 2 months before the wedding, Walsh Global signed a $32 million contract with Stratison. Our platform was the backbone of their new logistics overhaul, the very foundation of the future they were toasting at that wedding. I thought maybe that meant I mattered, that maybe, just maybe, the Blackwoods and the Walshes alike would look at me and say, he's one of us. He's the reason we're here. But the moment I stepped into the reception hall at the Fairmont Grand, the scent of imported peonies and polished silverware mixing with the laughter of people who'd never had to fight for their place, I felt the shift. I saw the seating chart by the doors, Caroline's fancy gold script looping across a white canvas like an afterthought. I found my name, expecting to see it near the front, with the family. Somewhere that reflected the work I'd put in, the sweat I'd poured into making sure this wedding was powered by a Stratus-backed empire, but my name wasn't at a table. It was scribbled next to the kitchen staff entrance. Table. Kitchen. I stood there for a second, blinking, as the planner, with the headset, gave me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Blackwood, here's your seat," she said, gesturing to the little sign on the partitioned wall, the sound of clinking plates echoing just beyond. A place where servers slipped in and out, carrying trays of champagne flutes and seared scallops that would never reach me. I tried to laugh. I even let a smile slip, because I couldn't quite believe it. Kitchen staff. The same kitchen that smelled of onions and sweat, of people who'd never be acknowledged by the glowing bride in her designer gown. That's where I belonged, apparently. I wasn't angry at first, just stunned. Like all those boardroom victories, all those million-dollar wire transfers hadn't shifted a single thing in the family that raised me. I was still the background, the kid who tinkered with computers in the basement, while Caroline got cheerleading trophies and birthday parties that cost more than my first computer. I looked around at the sea of navy suits and pastel dresses, at the laughter that floated, on the air like perfume, and felt the weight of every ignored report card, every quiet dinner alone while they toasted Caroline's latest pageant crown. I felt it all. Pressed down like a stone, Isabel walked in a minute later, her lipstick a daring crimson that made heads turn. She carried herself with that effortless confidence that only a venture capital partner could. She'd flown in from a summit in Berlin just to stand by my side. She was my reminder that I wasn't the boy in the basement anymore, but she stopped short when she saw the sign. "Kitchen?" she said, her voice tight with disbelief. "They put you at the kitchen?" I wanted to say it didn't matter, that I was used to this. But the words stuck like tar in my throat. "It's fine," I muttered. "It's not," she shot back, fire in her eyes. She looked at the planner, who flinched like she'd been struck. "Do you know who he is?" she demanded. "Do you understand what he built? What he's done for this wedding? For Walsh Global? The contract alone?" I put a hand on her arm. "Isabel, it's not worth it." But as I stood there, the laughter from the reception hall spilling over like a tide, I felt something shift, a fracture, like the old me, the one who just accepted being the spare, was finally burning away. The smell of sweat and onions from the kitchen mixed with the peonies and laughter, and it hit me all at once. Every smile I'd earned, every contract I'd signed, every time I stayed late to make sure someone else's dream didn't collapse. And now, in the hour that should have been a celebration, my family's celebration, I was an afterthought, an oversight, a name scribbled next to a kitchen, staff entrance, because that's all I'd ever been to them. I squared my shoulders, looked back at Isabel, and gave her the smallest smile. "Let's go in," I said. "Let's show them what it looks like to be indispensable." Because maybe they'd given me a kitchen seat, but I'd built the house they were celebrating in, and no one, no matter how many place cards they printed, could take that away from me. Brandon. Not to her in-laws, not even in passing at the dinner table. The realization was bitter, but clarifying. It was the culmination of every overlooked birthday, every missed graduation, every casual dismissal of my work as computer stuff. It wasn't that she forgot. It was that she'd chosen not to mention it. Maybe she thought it would complicate things. Or maybe, more likely, she didn't think it mattered. After all, Caroline's world had always been built on the assumption that my life was a footnote to hers. A convenient tech guy she could call when the printer jammed, not someone worth acknowledging in front of the people who signed checks. I thought about that dinner at her apartment 6 months ago. The one where she told me all about the wedding plans, the flowers, the dress, the band that cost more than my first server. I nodded along, asking questions, offering to help with the AV setup, even offering to connect her with a friend who did corporate events. She smiled and said, "Thanks, Julian, but it's all handled." I'd laughed, thinking it was the usual Caroline, wanting things her way. But maybe it had been more than that. Maybe she'd already decided that my name was better left off the guest list, at least when it came to the parts that mattered. Maybe, in her mind, it was easier to shine if there wasn't a reminder that her brother had built the software that made her new life possible. The thought of it made my chest tight, like all those nights I'd spent debugging code until sunrise, all the contracts I'd negotiated, all the risk I'd taken to build Stratus. It was just fuel for someone else's empire. And now that empire was raising champagne flutes to toast Caroline's marriage, all while pretending the bedrock I laid didn't even exist. I leaned forward, my elbows on the desk, and stared at the screen in front of me. My reflection wavered in the black glass, a distorted version of myself.